It's 4 o'clock on a Thursday, and this is a very special edition of Taxi TV Live, starring special guest star Mr. Jason Blume. Woo! Yeah, baby. I am so excited to...
And I'm excited.
Finally have you here.
Hello, Michael.
Hi, Jason. I have known Jason now, I don't know, 15 or more
Oh,
years?
way more than that.
Something like that. I mean, really long time. And we go to the Kauai Music Festival every year. He comes to the Road Rally almost every year.
Yeah.
He is a brilliant speaker, not just a good public speaker, but a brilliant public speaker.
Thank you, Michael.
And we always get tons of compliments about his classes at the Road Rally, and he's also responsible for turning me on to the Country Kitchen in Kauai. More importantly, he's turned me on to...
Hamura's Simon.
Yes, the Hamura's House of Simon is... Jason and I we share a love for a good bowl of Asian noodles. Oh, I should open the chat room so we can say hi to you guys. And Hamura's, he discovered years ago. And if you've ever seen the movie Tora, 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 this looks like it could have been part of the set. Bora, 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 or Tora, Tora? It's Tora, Tora.
One of those.
Yeah. Anyway, it looks like it is right out of, the day before the attack on Pearl Harbor, and nothing has changed. The food is incredible. The waitresses, if you are not Hawaiian, look at you like, what the hell are you doing in our restaurant? But I've gone there enough now, and I've tipped them well enough.
There's
they've started, and a couple times I said, I come with Jason Blume, but it didn't play that well, actually.
They weren't songwriters.
No, they're definitely not songwriters. But the food, if you ever have the opportunity to go to Kauai in a little town called Lihue, which is very near the airport, go to Hamura's House of Simon. It's got funky little wooden stools, Formica countertops, and I eat lunch and dinner there every day since you turned me on.
And you should go to Hawaii and Kauai for the Kauai Music Festival, which is awesome.
Yeah, he and I are old timers. I think you've been to every one.
I have.
And I've been to all but the first one. And this past year, I couldn't go because Deb had an aunt that was going into hospice in Kentucky. So she had to fly there, and I had to hold down the fort at home. So I sadly missed it this year. But before we get started, yes, House of, not Siam, but Simon, S-A-I-M-I-N, Simon. It's a type of noodle. You know, the bowl of noodles with incredible homemade broth and like a slice of egg and a little piece of ham and that red mystery fish that floats in there. Up until 2 weeks ago, I carried a picture of it in my cell phone.
I'm looking at the chat room stuff. Sounds like a bunch of Lahui to me, but Lahui, get it? Anyway.
Yes, I get it. We have an awesome crowd of people. And okay. So, wow, Casey's off the treadmill just in time. Great to see you guys. Okay, we're going to do what we've been doing, which is opening each show now with a song. And the song that we're going to hear today, Jason has not heard this. Nope. It's from a member named Luke Potter, who I've actually met. Luke is a very talented young man from the UK, and he's been to the taxi office. So I'm going to play you Crazy Enough to Try and Change the World. Jason's got a lyric sheet. Okay. I think he's got a question that Luke
while we're talking about the UK, while he's getting that set up, I will head the songwriting convention at the Belfast Nashville Music Festival that I go to every year in Belfast, and it is just a phenomenal festival. BelfastNashville.com.
You got to get me invited to that one year.
Oh, I would love to.
It's on my list of places to go. Jason just got back from, how long were you in?
7 weeks.
In Australia, in New Zealand, in Tasmania.
Ended up in Tasmania, yeah. Wow.
He is the authentic Tasmanian.
I taught my way through Australia and New Zealand.
And sent me a great picture of him holding a koala bear, which made my wife go, aww. All right, so here we go. This is Luke Potter's song. And I have the volume up. There we go.
It's just you and me behind this steering wheel. Got your hand on mine left it all behind. What will your dad say? The time that one to blame it on me, 'cause you're all I need. And they'll say we're crazy, crazy enough to try and change the world. And maybe, just maybe, we're reckless enough, we just might change the world. Left that neighborhood so misunderstood. Wonder when they'll know we're not coming home. They'll say crazy, crazy enough to try and change the world. And maybe, just maybe, we're reckless enough, we just might change the world. We're not going back, they don't understand. This was never planned. We got love in the palm of our hands. We're not going back, we're not going back. And they'll say crazy, crazy enough to try and change the world. And maybe, just maybe, we're reckless enough, we just might change the world. Crazy enough to try and change the world. And maybe, just maybe, we're reckless enough, we just might change the world. Crazy enough, we just might change.
And that was Luke Potter, not Harry Potter.
Wow, great work, Luke. You did really, really well on this. I'm really impressed.
He's a young guy, too. I forget how
wow.
old, but I think he might be like 18, 19 years
Wow.
old. Something. He's very
Wow,
young.
well, I think you've got a good future ahead of you. Gosh, let me see. I would say melodically, this is just super strong. I mean, really, really good work. I love it. Beautiful production. I think it's a great title. I would change the title actually a little bit. I don't think your title's crazy enough to try and change the world. I think I'd put in the parentheses just might, and then end parentheses change the world. Gosh, you've got some beautiful chord changes in here. I only really have a couple of little specific things to suggest, and anytime I do a critique, I always say, I'm not the song pope. I don't have like the, unquestionable, infallible comments here. Just one professional opinion that happens to be correct. But anyway,
it's not the Pope, maybe the rabbi.
No. Of course, yeah. Okay, couple little things lyrically. What will your dad say in the second verse? To me, that one line, besides not being necessary, you don't need it, and it's going to stop, I think, a lot of TV and film pitches, because, I mean, unless there's a specific thing with a father involved, I just don't see that working in a TV show or in a film. But again, the important thing to me is it's not the most important thing that you need to say there. The issue is not what is your father going to say. The issue is that we're crazy enough to try and change the world, and you're not really setting that aspect up. This is a song about the two of us running away together, and wow, maybe we're crazy enough to change the world, but how are you going to change the world? What do you want to change? What is it that you're trying to do? I even want even one line to set that aspect up in a verse, so that it makes sense when you come out with maybe we're crazy enough to try and change the world, which I love. I don't think you need the lines after your first chorus, left that neighborhood so misunderstood. I just think that there's a stronger line there because it's not about the neighborhood. And I just would rather hear more about the relationship, but also about what they want to do, what they want to change,
Right.
what they're angry about.
Centric to the whole song, it's in the
course,
title. Yeah,
of course. And one of the things I always teach is you want to support your title. If there's got to be a reason to say, we just might change the world. And unless you're setting up why you would want to change the world, what you would want to change, then that feels like you're not giving it the value it deserves by not supporting it enough. But I got to tell you, this is a super strong melody, beautiful production, and believe me, I'm not being easy on you, Luke, because I am a really tough critiquer, and everything else is working great for me. So you did a really, really good job.
I couldn't help but think the whole time I was listening to it, this would be an incredible. I completely agree with what you're saying lyrically. Mm-hmm. This would be a great end title credit song.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the film, when they have it's got almost a James Bond end title credit feel to it. It's big, it's lush.
Powerful.
Yeah. So really, really good job.
2 thumbs up.
Make it 4.
Ah.
Okay, so there you go. Thanks for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I don't even think I told Jason before he got here, oh, by the way, we're going to have you do a song today. So, but I'd been around him enough to know that wouldn't shock him, nor would he be incapacitated by doing it. So I'm glad that we did that. Congratulations to Luke for sending it in and getting it chosen. Thank you to Sophia for picking that. So I've got a few questions here, and I'm going to rely a lot on the audience later in the show. I recently got an email from a member saying that I talk too much at the road rally on the listening panels. I always feel guilty. I get these people from the industry on the panel, and the members in the audience just like, play my song, play my song. But I feel like if these, vice presidents of major labels are taking time out of their day to come over and educate our members, I should at least ask them why.
No kidding.
Yeah. So anyway, to the guy who complained about that, I hear you, but I don't necessarily agree. But I am going to open the floor to the members a lot today. But I do want to ask you, it's a classic question. What's the single biggest mistake that you see songwriters, especially new songwriters, making? Or is it more than one mistake that are kind of the classics?
No, there's one that hits me. Actually, I want to say 2.
Okay.
The first thing is I think that people underestimate melody. I think it's so easy to focus on a lyric and get a lyric critique and say, well, change this line, change this word. But in my opinion, the reason songs become successful, the top 3 reasons would be melody, melody, and melody. And I think especially in some genres, like in country music and in more like the singer-songwriter, folky, acoustic, Americana kind of worlds, I think people tend to forget that we're not writing poems, that we're writing songs. And there has to be a melody that people can latch onto. So that's one of the 2 big mistakes. But I want to say that the biggest of them all is failing to give somebody a reason to choose your song out of 1,000 others that are in the pile.
And are you talking an industry person or the public?
Both.
Okay.
Really. In other words, what I'm saying is one way or another, you better set your song apart from the rest. Learning the formula, learning how to write a perfectly crafted, really good song is great, and you better learn how to do that. And now you better differentiate your song. And of course, this goes for you too if you're an artist. You better differentiate your product, whether it's your song, whether it's yourself, in some way to make somebody say, out of all the options on this table, including the songs that I wrote myself, that my producer wrote, that the A&R person's girlfriend wrote, and maybe his wife too. Anyway, out of all these songs, there has to be a reason why they're going to pick yours instead of everybody else's. And I think A lot of times when I critique, I hear perfectly crafted songs that just don't go well. Not melodically, not lyrically, not in terms of being built on a concept that is really unique. I won't bother to waste my time writing a song, let alone demoing it, unless I've got a concept, an idea, and typically that's going to be a title as well, that is really going to be interesting and unique. And I actually really do have a file that's marked future hits. There's a digital file in my computer and one in my briefcase marked future hits. That's all my little ideas and that kind of thing. And in the actual physical file, I have a post-it note on the left side that says, is this concept strong enough to make the artist bump their own song? And if the answer is no, I don't want to write it. So, I feel like that's the biggest problem, is people writing songs that are perfectly good and not separating them. We've got to be better than good. Not just better. We've got to be just as good, but different in the littlest way.
People always say, oh, I hear so many B-sides and album cuts. Why do I have to come up with something amazing? No artist, in my experience of 40 years in the industry, has ever said, let's find some filler for the rest of this record. You do hear a lot of stuff that we all think is filler, but the artist, the producer, and the label put their little heads together and thought the stuff on there was hits.
No kidding. I mean, remember, any filler, first of all, filler is in the eye of the beholder, the ear of the beholder, I guess. But anything, that maybe probably isn't the strongest song on the album, that's going to be have written by the artist. If they're going to be cutting an outside song, they have got to believe they just found a #1 single. Nobody is going to cut a song these days that they don't think is a single. I mean, unless you're in a genre that's not really singles based. I mean, if you're writing Americana music, no, you're not looking to have a hit single, but you sure better be looking to have an amazing song.
And nowadays, the concept of the album is dying anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So it is even more so about singles. Let's go back to melody for a second.
Mm-hmm.
How do you teach melody? I hear people say, oh, I took a music theory class at Berkeley or wherever, and I'm not saying anything bad about Berkeley, but how do you teach melody? I think that would be the most difficult thing. Lyric craft seems to be more of a craft where you could read books, study your videos, what have you, but melody, there are only so many notes.
Melody is my favorite thing to teach, and it's the thing that I think I teach the best. And it's interesting that when I started out, I thought I couldn't write melody because I wasn't a strong player, and meaning I didn't play guitar, I didn't play keyboards very well, and that's an understatement. I was horrible. And I think what that did is it caused me to focus on melody, meaning what the singer sings as opposed to the tracks. I'm not a track guy, and to me, nobody walks down the street singing chord changes or drum, or beats or bass.
Drummers too.
Yeah, well, fine, but there's a lot of people buying music out there, and they're not drummers. My feeling is we have to come up with melody for the singer to sing that sticks in the brain. And lucky for us, there are reasons why some melodies burn into the brain like a tattoo, and others just go like, 747 right over the head.
So how do you learn to craft that kind of melody?
I think that the three things that we have to incorporate into melody are repetition, repetition, and repetition. And in my workshop, well, funny you would mention my workshop, Michael. Yes, I am doing a workshop in Los Angeles, January 17 and 18. Go to jasonblume.com.
Which is, 6 days from now?
Oh, no, it's like a month, almost a month
January.
from now.
Yeah,
January 17 and 18.
Are you staying out here the whole time? Or are you going back?
Oh, no, I'll be back in Nashville. But anyway, at the workshop, I will go through all the different ways that we can incorporate repetition into our melodies. And there are a lot of different ways, but one of the most common things that I hear is repeating the same rhythm in the vocal melody, the same number of notes, the same number of syllables, but sometimes the notes change. Mm-hmm. And we don't even realize that when you're listening to the chorus of Happy, 'cause I'm happy, 'cause I'm happy, trust me, you can count if you don't believe me. Every single line in that chorus has the exact same number of syllables. I see it over and over and over again. Now, am I telling you that that's what you must do? Of course not. There's no rules in songwriting. I teach tools that I observe by studying hit songs in different genres. So when I say different genres, I listen to Janis Ian, and I notice she's doing the exact same thing I just talked about. And in my workshops, we go through this whole list of hit songs, whether it's Adele, whether it's urban music. This burns, it's repetition. So you're hearing it over and over again. It burns into the brain, even though it doesn't sound simplistic, because what you're repeating is not necessarily the same notes, but the same rhythms. So that's one of about 3 or 4 different ways I teach to incorporate repetition into the melodies. And what I do is I take a title from an audience member and we work it. I show people that, if you believe me when I say that your song's going to be successful or not, largely based on the melody, then why would you just settle for the very first melody that pops into your head if it's that important? So I take a random phrase and we rewrite melody for it 20, 30, 50 times and build on the rhythm that's established in the first line of that section.
Is it obvious when you hit, of those 20, 30, 50 times, when you get to number 28, and it happens to be the one, does everybody in the room know it at the moment?
It's funny, the very last time I did this was in Brisbane, Australia, where it was a delightful 95 degrees a couple of weeks ago. And when we did hit on that one, everybody in the room knew it. There was no question. It's not always that case. It's so much easier when it is that case. So how do you know which was the one? And I tell people the answer is the one, that was quotes if I could get my fingers in there. The one is the one that at 11 o'clock that night, you can't get out of your brain. And you think it was something different maybe.
Or think it was somebody else's because it goes into your brain so easily.
Exactly.
I would be worried that I'm regurgitating a melody I heard 35 years ago.
Sure, and that a lot of people are worried about that. And I think that's one of the reasons it's important to get feedback, so that if you have that little red flag, somebody else is going to raise their hand and say, oh, wait a minute, you're right on top of, this Rolling Stones melody or whatever. So I love teaching melody, and I think one of the most important things I can teach people is to show them. I say I don't teach melody writing, I teach melody rewriting. And that's the key. To start with a melody and ask yourself, okay, what can I do to incorporate an unexpected note, an unexpected interval? Isn't it rich? Isn't it queer, losing my timing this late in my career? I took out one note. I took out one note out of Sondheim's classic, and I ruined it. And so therefore I urge people, look consciously. Is there that one note that could take your song to that whole different level? Losing my timing this late in my career. Oh, there's the money. Is there a different rhythm that you can try on? Okay, this is the one that came out of your head. Great, I'm glad you like it. Now, how else can we break up that line?
Can it be too long or too short? Is there kind of a sweet spot of the number of notes per line that a melody comfortably carries?
No, there's really not, because I think especially if you're doing something that's sort of more urban oriented, where you've got like really almost hip-hop rhythms incorporated, which, by the way, I am noticing so much of on Music Row in Nashville right now. Serious hip-hop rhythms in mainstream country songs. But also, if you're doing that in pop, you may need and want hooky, catchy rhythms. So they will sometimes be very long phrases, but there's not really a rule. It can also be really effective to have very short melodic phrases because they stick in the brain so easily, small bits of information. But the main thing to be aware of, I think, is if you're going to have long melodic phrases, like a whole big long, month-long line, it can't be there just because you've got all these syllables because your lyric came first.
Right.
It's got to be there because that's what the melody wants it to be. Now, if that isn't the case, if it just sounds wordy as opposed to rhythmic and catchy and hooky, then I look at getting out my little imaginary scissor and looking at where can I snip that line and maybe make that one long line of lyric into 2 or 3 lines. So
Right.
they can be more catchy and more, easy to remember.
Yeah, it's all about digestibility
Absolutely.
and regurgitation. Ultimately.
Oh, absolutely. And hopefully nobody's going to want to regurgitate after they've heard your melody.
in the form of singing along.
Absolutely.
Because as Jay Frank wisely pointed out in Future Hit.DNA, and I think we've all known this all along, the minute you can engage the listener to the point where they can sing along, especially if it's in a key that the average person can sing along
Sure.
with, you have so embedded that in your physical being and your mental being because you can do it.
Absolutely.
So,
And I think that's one of a big part of Taylor Swift's genius.
Yep.
Is no, these songs do not have massive range because she doesn't have massive range. Anybody can sing along with them, and they're just literally brilliantly crafted pieces of repetition, repetition, and repetition. But when you're working with a couple of guys named Max Martin and Shellback, and you have Taylor Swift's talent, it's.
I gotta hand it to her. Stuff that she writes on her own is still really good.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
Oh, yeah.
that far below,
Oh, yeah.
I think everybody would like to believe that she relies so
Sure.
heavily on Max,
Sure.
but I've made a point of listening to some of the stuff that she wrote solo. It's still pretty freaking good.
Sure, she wrote an entire album solo,
Yeah.
I guess it was 2 albums ago.
Was it Red or no, the one before Red?
The one before that.
Yeah.
And there were #1 songs on that. To me, she has done what artists need to do, which is identify her very unique niche. There wasn't anybody else out there doing what she was doing when she did it, and came up with the songs that are just, to me, it's all about the songs.
I think she understood. Oh gosh, what was her name? Another woman that everybody in Nashville hated for a minute because she wasn't a typical Shania Twain.
Oh yeah,
She took Shania's sassy look at men and relationships and then took it down to her age level. And the lyrics are so what a teenage girl would say, or a girl of that age. I know because I've lived with them. And then just took them to a level that nobody else could do.
I swear to you, wait, I have to tell you, I heard Shania Twain on the radio earlier today, and honest to God, it crossed my mind thinking the similarities with her and Taylor Swift. And I think a lot of the similarities are neither one had, an unbelievable Celine Dion kind of a voice,
Right.
but they had the songs that were just literally burned into the brain.
They both melodically turn phrases in a similar way at the end, too, if you notice that. There are similarities, and I can't say that Taylor ripped off Shania, but she was, I think, clearly influenced.
I'm sure she was influenced.
I've never asked her the question, nor have I read any interviews with her, but I bet if you were asked.
One other thing before we leave that topic, because you were talking about how I teach melody, I think that Taylor Swift is a master of one of the techniques that I teach, which is finding those hooky, catchy rhythms. And I think she probably had to do that because she didn't have a huge range. And that's one of the things that I think is the key to her amazing melodies. If you think about We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, the rhythms in that verse, did it, 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 did did it, did it, did it, did it, did it. It's just rhythm.
Yeah.
It's and it's rhythm that is so hooky and so catchy. So listen to me, people. Explore your rhythms. Don't just settle for the first one. You listen to the songs you love on the radio, and the chances are going to be that you're going to hear really interesting rhythms in those vocal melodies.
if you go back and listen to some of the songs that Kim sang in Bye Bye Birdie, there are similar moments where she relies on rhythm. I'm telling you, Taylor Swift is, I don't know if she did subconsciously by osmosis, but she's grabbed just like the little 2% that is the best of so many things and synthesized it into something fresh, fresh for today. And really critical. A minute ago, you mentioned artists, and that's on my list of things I wanted to talk to you about. The one thing artists should know, and contrast it to what songwriters should know.
It's interesting that you're bringing that up now because it's very much what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of years in the A&R department at RCA Records. A lot of people don't realize that. It was just ages ago. And then I also worked as a production coordinator.
I've got to interrupt you because when Jason got here today, we've known each other for like 20 years, and he told me he had a kind of a lump in the throat, hair raised on the arm moment today, which goes back. So I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No,
but
it's cool.
He was telling Jason used to live in LA. You came from Long Island originally?
No, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Okay, and he moved out here. You know, like so many people, gets off the bus, so to speak, and ended up working a crappy job wearing a suit and tie. Tell them where you worked and what you did and where you were an hour before you came.
The thing is, there were a lot of crappy jobs along the way because I went to work with a temp agency, and you know, I actually do an entire lecture called How to Get Lucky, like how to make your own luck. One of the things I did was I researched, if I've got to work 40 hours a week, what are the temp agencies that provide temps in Los Angeles to the entertainment business? So maybe I would learn something. Maybe I'd get a foot in the door.
Or meet the right person, all that stuff.
And that is actually how I eventually wound up at RCA Records, where I stayed for 8 years. But before that happened, the temp agency, a different one, sent me out to work at Chubb Insurance. And about an hour ago, I stood in front of that building. I stood right in front of the doorway, where I would dress in a jacket and tie and show up at 8 in the morning and shred paper 2 sheets at a time, 8 hours a day. And standing there, I can't even begin to express the emotion. I could just cry, saying it right, reliving it right now, because I had such a dream. I wanted it so badly. I swear to you, the entire time I was shredding paper, I was gone. I wasn't even I was physically there, but I was writing songs or I was rehearsing on a stage in my mind while I was shredding the paper, and I wanted it so desperately. And it's just incredible for me to walk past that and have lunch right near there today and realize, you know, the most important thing I teach is that dreams can come true. You know, I don't get to guarantee them, but I know that they can. And I got to tell you something else. On my flight here, there was a very LA young woman flying from Nashville to here. And she had obviously, from the details of her life that I was gleaning from her cell phone conversation, she had obviously come to Nashville to become, you know, recognized as a superstar there. And I heard her telling somebody how devastating it was for her when she was told that she's not ready, that the songs weren't ready yet, and that she wasn't developed sufficiently as an artist. And she said something I just loved. She said to the person on the phone, you know, I realized it's like I'm a flower and I'm growing and I'm getting ready, but it's not time to bloom yet. I loved that.
Wow, at least she didn't blame it on Nashville for crushing her dreams and stepping on her flower.
I know. And I think sometimes there's just more growing to do. During the times when I was shredding paper, I knew that I had the most incredible songs, better than the crap on the radio. And if only I knew
Anybody out there ever have that?
Yeah. You know, there were 2 reasons why I was not successful back then. Number 1, I wasn't lucky. Number 2, I didn't have the right connections. You know, and number 3 never even entered my mind, which was that I was writing songs that were mediocre. And that was after many years of writing songs that sucked. I clawed my way up the ladder to mediocre. And it wasn't time for me to bloom yet. And it took
No pun
exactly,
intended.
yeah. And it took way longer than I ever thought that it would.
Well, I got to say, hats off to that girl because
Mm-hmm.
you've painted an image of her being your typical little nose in the air,
Oh yeah,
mini skirted. My hair is perfect. My nails are awesome. LA girl, and we've got plenty of those out here. Not
yeah,
all, but some. And at least she had. First of all, she got the meetings.
yeah,
Good for her.
yeah.
And second of all, that's a, yeah. If she's the kind of person that you perceived her to be, the fact that she was able to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't her time to bloom and she had more work to do,
Mm-hmm.
good going, girlie.
Yeah, I agree totally.
I mean, I'm proud of her for having that thought. Um, okay, so we're talking about artists versus songwriters. What do songwriters need to know? Is it? I don't want to put words in your mouth,
Okay.
and I was about to. So we've covered the artists. What do artists need to know?
Mm-hmm.
What do songwriters need to know? Because you, everybody thinks the most recent stuff that they've written
Of course.
is their best stuff, and
Yeah.
it might be because they've
Mhm.
matured along the way. How do you know when you're fully baked and you are ready for prime time, or you're maybe good enough that you could be writing
Mhm.
with people who are a little better than you that can
Mhm.
move you into a different level of other co-writers and stuff?
Mhm.
How do you know? Because you can't be objective.
Right. I want to back up a little bit because I luckily made a note.
Okay.
We had sort of gotten off track,
Yeah,
and you
thanks
had
to me
asked
bringing
me.
up the hair-raising
Yeah, but I
experiences.
liked it.
Okay.
But you had asked me about what is it that artists need to know or what mistake they make.
Yeah.
And I was saying that I had spent 8 years screening songs and screening artists for RCA
Yeah,
Records,
right.
and then being a production coordinator and also screening songs and screening artists. And the number one most important thing that I can tell anybody, listen, people, I am dead serious. It is all about the songs. It does not matter how good you sing. Nobody walks down the street singing a voice. It doesn't matter how good you look. There has to be, if you're in the pop world, there has to be a hit song. And if you're in other worlds, whether it's Americana, whether it's, well, of course, in country also, it's got to be a hit song, not just a good song. But in some of the other genres, it's got to be a great song. And I think, it might sound so simplistic and so obvious, but over and over again, I see people not getting it, that it's about the song. It's got to be an amazing song. So, what is it that makes a song an amazing song? I think it's really a very simple combination, not simple to achieve, but a simple combination to define. I think you want, there is a formula. If we're talking about pop, if we're talking about country, in almost every genre, there are formulas.
People hate the F word.
Right. Well, you know what? I hated the F word when I didn't even know when I took my first class that there was such a thing as choruses or verses or structures. I swear to you that
You
I
literally, are you talking about when you got here?
when
So
I
it's like-
got to LA, I will swear to you that I did not know that the title is supposed to be in the song.
Wow.
I learned that in the first workshop that I took. And so, along the way, I realized that these formulas are the form of delivery. It doesn't weaken my song. It doesn't alter my message. It's the way I can deliver my song. But my song better, within that formula, have something to separate it, some way to set it apart from the rest. I want to build the lyric on a foundation of being a completely fresh, new way to say the same old thing.
Which is really, really, really hard.
Right. And by the way, when I say the same old thing, I don't literally mean the same old thing, because if we look at some of the biggest pop records in the last couple of years, they're dealing with issues and topics that are not the same old thing. We'll never be royals.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard that? Never.
What does the fox say?
Exactly. I just heard Ariana Grande on the way here, Black Widow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a completely unique concept. Wait a minute. What do I do with the haters out there, Taylor Swift? I shake it off. This is not, oh baby, I love you so much, come on. In other words, find your angle. And if it's going to be, oh, baby, I
love
love
that.
you so much, you better find a really seriously unique angle. Same deal melodically. It's harder to pinpoint and define what it is that stays in the formula and yet totally burns in the brain. My feeling is, study these hit songs. Study Taylor Swift with Max Martin.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And see, no, don't copy them. See what's working. And guess what? What you're going to find out is what's working is repetition, repetition, and repetition. But then you've got to sprinkle your own stuff on it. It's got to be unique. It's got to be your way of doing it. You do all of that with a killer, slightly fresh, wow production. And see, wasn't that easy? Hit song.
And I love the fact that you mentioned slightly fresh production, because you can't go, people, I love guys who are just, they'll go on a bass and go, look, man, I'm playing jazz. It's really outside.
Yeah.
No, you've got to be an incredible jazz bassist to take it to the next level. Well, the same thing for being a fresh songwriter. You have to take it to the next level without going so far outside and so high over the level that radio won't touch it.
Exactly.
I mean, Lord did that.
Yeah.
She gave him something totally fresh, but it was still radio worthy.
Right. Production-wise, we'd never heard anything like that.
Right.
When the first line hit, I cranked up, the volume. Was like, whoa, what's that? And yet, catchy, hooky, a chorus that lifts, a chorus that you can sing back the first time you hear it, that does all the stuff I teach in my workshops, like the one I'm doing January 17 and 18 in Los Angeles. By the way,
shameless, but you gotta love it.
I know, but all kidding aside, this is important for people to know. Only until the 17th of December, there's a $20 early bird discount, and I have a very strong feeling based on how it's going, it'll be sold out by then. Because it's already more than 3/4 sold out.
They can go to jasonblume.com.
jasonblume.com.
And Blume, by the way, is spelled
B-L-U-M-E.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, not like the flower. Okay, so I got to turn this off.
While you're doing that, I will also say
already.
that the one other thing, well, funny you would mention that. He said promoting again, but the one other thing that is required really for success is getting my books and my instructional CDs while you're at jasonblume.com. Okay, back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Jason.
We return from this commercial announcement back to Taxi TV.
What do songwriters need to know? Now, we've discussed what artists need to know, which is that it's the song, it's the song, it's the song. How about songwriters? What do they need to know?
Well, I think it's really what I was just saying a minute ago, that we have to take it to the next level.
Okay.
That it has to be formula, it has to fit on the radio format or within whatever format you're writing. But if you don't do something to separate yours, they're not going to pick yours.
I've got to
instead
say,
of everybody else's.
I've got more hope for radio, pop radio today than I've had in a very long time, and country, because there are acts breaking through that don't fit the typical poppy, beat-driven dance, formulaic stuff on pop radio.
Sam Smith.
Yeah. Oh, man. He may be, I know people are going to disagree with me. Sam Smith may be the best artist to come along in like 5-10 years. I think that guy's incredibly talented.
To me, the only reason I wouldn't say that is because that would put him ahead of Adele, who I think is also an amazing artist, but I think they're right in the same thing, and I agree. It gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah. And look at country, bands like Civil Wars, Lady Antebellum, acts like that.
And look at the song "Follow Your Arrow."
Yeah.
I mean, winning Song of the Year it's unheard of.
Yeah.
So that gives me a lot of hope too.
So what are they currently looking for? Everybody asks me this question all the time, and I've got to admit, I used to go to Nashville a lot more frequently than I have been in the last few years, to the point where Nashville finally kind of accepted me, almost to the point of embracing me, which is hard. People think that you're going to go to Nashville and they're going to love you because you're brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I was forewarned before I ever went to Nashville to pitch people on the idea of running listings with Taxi.
Mm-hmm.
So I went there, kept my head low, and kept my ears open and my mind open until they learned to respect the fact that I was respecting them rather than I'm from LA, so I'm going to come to town and teach you something.
Exactly, and I see that all the time, and it is not a good idea.
No, I mean, there's no faster way to get a ticket out
No
of
kidding.
Nashville than walk
No
in like
kidding.
you're bringing them, the next best thing. So what
Okay.
what are they looking for on the road?
I teach the BMI Songwriters Workshop in Nashville. I've been teaching it, I think, 19 years. And every other month, a publisher sits in the chair next to me and listens to a song from every one of the 50 people in the workshop. By the way, the workshop is free. It's open to anybody. You don't have to be a BMI member.
And it's in the BMI building on the road.
Right, but you've got to get a reservation. Well, there are other ways in, but basically go to jasonblume.com, click on BMI workshops, and it shows all the dates and all the topics and all that kind of thing. So it shows you how to register for it. So month after month, what do? I ask the publisher who sits next to me, what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you what I'm hearing. I will tell you what we don't want. No more trucks, no more tailgates, no more same old crap. Been there, done that. They're all saying it's over. One of them said to me that she had a meeting with her staff writers and said to them, do not bring me another truck or tailgating or getting drunk weekend song because I will not pitch it if you bring it to me. So I said to her, of course, I said, Julie, not giving away who it was, what is it you're looking for then? She said, I'm looking for the next big thing.
I'll know it when I hear it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I said, so what's the next big thing? She said, I don't know. Will you write it for me?
Yeah.
And I am really looking forward to hearing what that is, but apparently we now know what it's not. But I will also say that if you would have told me 5 years ago that hip-hop rhythms were going to be all over mainstream country radio, I would have said you are completely out of your mind, that will never happen. And it has happened, only proving once again, I don't know what I'm talking about. So if I were writing today to try and consciously say, I want a country hit, I would be very aware of the rhythms. Of course, we want to take it to a next level. We want to go to where it's going to be a year or 2 years from now. But I would
tell them why that's important.
Because the songs that you're hearing on the radio that you're emulating were written a year or two ago. I mean, that's when the albums were recorded. If the songs are on the radio now, by the time the album comes out, if they go into a third single, that album's been out a year.
Right.
Or close to that. So, I mean, our job really is to go to the next level. But if I were writing for Nashville right now, I would be very aware of writing not just unbelievable melodies. I mean, you've got to look at people like Lady Antebellum and people like that who have really taken in more pop than ever before.
Which is, this happens. It's almost on a clock in Nashville.
Absolutely.
Where we go country, country, pop.
Right.
Ooh, pop, country, country, pop. Ooh, pop.
Exactly.
But then the pop blasts to the top of the charts and everybody emulates it until they go, oh, we're so sick of pop. And then it goes back to more authentic, kind of retro country.
So since I actually left my crystal ball in Nashville, it's in the shop. What I will tell people they might want to try writing, whether it's for Nashville or anywhere else, is something that really matters to them. Yeah. Something that comes from their soul, something that comes from their heart. Express it in a way that is going to connect to millions of people, not just you.
Don't make the story so personal that they don't know who you're talking about.
Right, but even more importantly, melodically accessible to people. Do that. I believe if it's something you're writing about that is important to you, that comes from your heart, that comes from your soul, people are going to feel that. And there is just something about being real, just ask Adele, that, touches people's hearts.
I would say 30 to 50% of all the listings we get from people in the industry, they mention the words authentic, believable, things like that, because they not only want lyrics that are believable and authentic and conversational and sound like they've come from a real place, they want the vocal delivery.
Sure.
To the vocalist to deliver it in such a way where it's like you and I, times that we've gone out to breakfast and we'll talk about family members and stuff. That's real.
Yeah.
Can we make that so that everybody in the room feels it too?
I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that years ago, my dear friend Karen Taylor Good was your keynote speaker at the
I will
Taxi
never
Road
forget
rally.
that, ever.
I adore Karen. We wrote a song together called On Angel's Wings that in a lot of ways changed her career. And not the biggest hit, not the biggest money maker, although Colin Ray, who was a pretty big country artist, recorded the song. We wrote that song. The point is, the song is about Alzheimer's. The song is about questioning deep stuff about why a loving God takes things away at the end of life. When we wrote that song, the two of us were sobbing. It was about Karen's mother. We didn't sit there to write a successful hit song.
Right.
We wrote there because we needed to express what was in our souls. And I consider that one of the most successful songs of my entire career. I don't think I'm ever going to beat it. And by the way, it's Karen Taylor Good's version that you need to listen to.
Does Good have an E on the end?
No.
It's okay, so just
no,
a regular...
Karen Taylor Good. And to me, the point being, when we stopped trying to chase the radio and wrote something that we cared about that was so powerful and wrote it, I want to tell you something. I tell people, don't let the truth get in the way of a great lyric. There were things we changed in that song to make it more accessible and to make it more emotional for a lot of people, things that were not literally true about Karen's mother. Nobody knows or cares about Karen's mother. They want to feel something when they listen to your song. My point being, we wrote truth, we wrote emotion that was so intense to us. And that song, I can't even tell you all the things that song has happened with, including being the flagship song for the National Hospice Association and leading Karen to gigs literally all around the world.
Were you at the Road Rally the year she was there?
Oh, of course. Yeah, it was incredible.
She was a last-minute fill-in, if I remember correctly. We had somebody with a bigger brand name, and you might have suggested her. I think
did.
I called you in a panic and said, can you come up with anybody? And he said, Karen Taylor Good, trust me on this. Frankly, I'd never heard of the woman. She asked that we set up a keyboard on the stage with a microphone, and she got up there and spoke. First of all, there was not a dry eye in the house. Second of all, she just killed it. One of the greatest interviews or speakers that we ever had at the Road Rally.
I agree.
In all these years.
She's amazing.
I was just talking about her like a
month
ago.
I also want to tell people who are artists that Karen has really created a niche for herself in this world as an artist. She went through the whole Nashville thing. She was nominated for Best New Artist of the Year country many years ago. She was Grammy nominated also for Country Song of the Year for How Can I Help You Say Goodbye, which is just an amazing piece of writing that she wrote with Burton Cumming and or Burton Collins.
I was going to say Burton Cummings.
Wrong one. Everybody makes that mistake. But anyway, the point being that she's really created a career for herself now, more in a spiritual, positive, uplifting speaker and singer kind of a world.
Yeah, she's a life coach that delivers her message in song.
Right. So the point I'm making to artists is there are other routes to success besides a hit song.
Good point.
Yeah.
I just saw a great article yesterday written by John Storek, who's a world-famous studio designer that's been a dear old friend of mine since 1977. And he said, everybody talks about you don't want to go to school to be an engineer. I'm guilty of that myself. Don't go to audio engineering and production school anymore because all the major studios are shutting down. There are very few places to get a job. And he said, you know what, that's such BS because you can get a job mixing audio post, doing 5.1 surround stuff. There are a million doing audio for video games. Very, very complex field.
Right.
So same kind of thing.
And even taking that a step further, I think as songwriters, we need to think beyond our little box globally. I had an amazing year. The past year, I had 3 top 10 singles that were all gold records in Europe. And they were songs, I'm going to be honest with you here, I couldn't have gotten them cut in the U.S.
Do you have a publisher in Europe? How did you get the cuts?
It's just a really crazy situation where the producer and manager was aware of my work, sent me an email saying, do you have any songs for this artist who's very successful in the Netherlands and some other countries? And I sent some songs. They cut 2 of them that were 2 singles that just did incredible for her. And then they asked me to write a specific song for her third song that I had with her, and I wrote that with Rick Chudikoff, and boom, #1 on iTunes, which was incredible. The point being, I think we have to, especially those who are not in the US, where there are more limited opportunities, like in New Zealand and places where these are little tiny countries where a hit song's not going to earn you enough money to go to McDonald's, well, maybe once or twice. So the point being, I think we need to really be aware of the whole picture and look at, that there's a whole world out there. And maybe my song is not right for the US, but maybe it's perfect for Japan. Maybe it's perfect for France.
How do they know those markets? I guess they go online.
And you study those charts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to, you Google, pop charts, New Zealand, or pop charts, Holland, or whatever.
We get listings from huge companies in Korea that are reaching out to Taxi for co-writers for K-pop hits.
Yeah.
We're starting to get these on a semi-regular basis. I would say, I don't know, half a dozen per quarter or something. And nobody submits to them.
Mm-hmm. That's unbelievable.
It's mind-blowing. We'll get, like 9 submissions and none of them are even close. We're opening the door wide to a golden opportunity.
I may be able to change that for you by letting people know. I had a really big J-pop cut
in Japan.
A couple of years ago. It's Japanese pop, and it's so different from what's here. It's like ultra melodic, just like so bubblegummy sing-along kind of stuff.
Right.
The song, the EP debuted at #1. I want to tell you, I made a lot of yen off of that. That's what I want people to know. That's a really big market. And if you're writing pop, I think it's a market you should explore.
I asked somebody who knows a fair amount about K-pop, which is Korean pop. I said, what do people need to know about it? And he said, remember the Archies, the song Sugar,
yes!
Sugar,
Perfect.
He
Said,
take that and put a dance beat under
my
it and
God,
then give it to
yes.
them and let them write a lyric, because there's no lyric you could write in English that they can actually do a Korean translation of that's going to work well. So they're going to maybe take your concept for the lyric and then write their own Korean lyrics to it. I'm telling you, we have so many listings that we know are great ops, and our members are not submitting.
Crazy.
They don't read the stuff. Okay, one last question before we open up the floor to the members or the viewers. So what's different about a country lyric versus a pop or rock lyric? Country is clearly unto itself. What makes it such?
I think Nashville has elevated the craft of lyric writing to just the highest possible level. I remember when I moved there initially, and by the way, I lived in LA, banging my head against the wall for years and years, trying to get successful, and by a fluke, I wound up getting my first cut, and it was a big one in Nashville. And that's why suddenly I had credibility. I moved to Nashville, but I never dreamed I would do that. I was a pop writer. And I learned that there were techniques that the Nashville writers were using in their lyrics that were learnable. They weren't magic. When I started studying some of these songs, I just thought these people are geniuses. But then I started realizing, as a teacher, I started breaking things down, especially when I wrote my best-selling book, 6 Steps to Songwriting Success. Anyway, I had to start breaking down, what are these people doing? And I teach something now that I call the Aid to Writing Great Verse Lyrics. It's AID. And what it's about is incorporating action, images, and details into your verse lyrics.
Makes
now,
great sense.
This is not an important tool for writing Nashville songs. It's not important. It's mandatory. That is what Nashville lyrics are currently 100% based on.
Say what the acronym stands for again.
Use action, verbs. Use images, nouns. Use detail, adjectives. To show instead of telling. That's what you have to do.
I'm going to play a Nashville demo.
Okay.
You're going to know this song. This is the demo version, and I think that the first 3 lines absolutely exemplify what you're talking about. Tell me if I'm nuts.
Well, I already know that, but let's hear the song.
You guys have heard this before. It's my favorite piano vocal demo in any genre of all time. Now remember, action, images and detail.
details.
Now listen to the lyric. I'm going to stop as we play.
I can hear the truck tires coming up the gravel road.
Action.
Mhm.
I can hear the truck tires coming
Right,
up the gravel
as
road.
opposed to telling how I feel.
Right.
You're telling what is happening. You hear me what I'm saying? Tell what's happening. It's about showing instead of telling how you feel.
Okay.
Okay, let's hear what's next.
And it's not like her to drive that slow. Nothing's on the radio.
Image. We can picture her sitting in the car. Not, she normally wouldn't
Yeah.
drive that slow. Nothing's on the radio.
Right.
We know something about her.
Yes.
Footsteps on the front porch. I hear my doorbell. She usually comes right in.
Detail.
Now I can tell. Here comes goodbye. Here comes the last time. Here comes the start of every sleepless night. The first of every tear. I'm gonna cry. Here comes the pain. Here comes me wishing things had never changed. And she was right here in my arms tonight. But here comes goodbye.
Okay, let's go back to the AID formula
Yeah.
and see if they do
It's
it.
just doing everything right,
Yeah.
and especially melodically as well. My God.
This was written in a day.
I can hear her say I love you like it was yesterday.
I can hear her say I love you. Action.
Right,
Okay.
and also a unique way of saying it.
Yeah.
That's important too.
Right. Fresh. There's that word
Yeah.
fresh.
And I can see it written on her face that she had never felt this way.
Image. I
I
can
can
see it on.
see it
Yeah.
on her face. Yeah.
One day I thought I'd see her with her daddy by her side and violins would play.
Detail.
Here comes a bride, but here comes goodbye.
Wow.
Here comes the last time. Here comes the start of every sleepless night. The first of every tear. I'm gonna cry. Here comes the pain. Here comes me wishing things had never changed. And she was right here in my arms tonight. Here comes goodbye. Why does it have to go from good to gone before the lights turn on and you're left alone? All alone.
Take it back down.
Here comes goodbye. Here comes the last time. Here comes the start of every sleepless night. The first of every tear. I'm gonna cry. Here comes the pain. Here comes me wishing things had never changed. And she was right here in my arms tonight. Here comes goodbye. Ooh.
Yeah. Who sang that demo?
It's a Nashville demo singer. I don't know his name, but it was written by Curtis Sly, who was a contestant on American
Yeah,
Idol.
yeah, I know. I remember Chris Sly, I think it was.
Maybe
I may
Chris,
be wrong. I mean, I see him right in front of
yeah.
me with the frizzy.
Right, exactly.
curly black
a little,
hair,
little
yeah.
heavy with black curly hair.
Yeah.
Sorry if you've lost weight. And another guy whose name I can't remember, and they're
Yeah.
not. Ralph Murphy gave me this like 3 years ago.
Wow.
And It absolutely. Jason had no idea I was going to play this. I had no idea we were going to be on this subject or that I would play it, but I was curious to see if it fit the formula, which it really exemplified it well.
Sure.
And it proves the point. Another question people often ask you and ask me as well is, how good does my demo have to be?
God.
Okay. Well, you know what? This proves the point. This did get cut by Rascal Flatts, and by the way, this piano vocal demo makes the Rascal Flatts finished version.
Sort of agree.
Yeah.
It's almost always the case, though.
Yeah, this just, oh my God. And so, yeah, if you write songs this well,
No
a
kidding.
piano and a voice is all you need.
And
Yeah.
the thing is, though, if you write songs this well that are that kind of style, I wouldn't
Yeah.
write. I wouldn't do, an Ariana Grande song
No.
with a piano and a vocal. I do want to mention, I think a lot of the power of that song is that incredible melody. And I said that, people really underestimate melody, especially in Nashville. So I want to challenge people, listen to that song again.
It's called
Listen-
Here Comes
Here
Goodbye.
Comes Goodbye.
Good luck finding, you're only going to be able to find the Rascal Flatts
Oh,
version
yeah.
online.
Sure.
This was published by Extreme Writers Group, Jason Hauser and Michael Martin. They actually signed Elliot Park to a publishing deal through Taxi years ago. Really good guys, worked their butts off as publishers. But I tried to find this online when I lost the CD once and couldn't. So listen to the version from Rascal Flatts, but it won't make the hair on your arm stand up.
Okay, so here's the challenge that I would give people. The way that chorus made you feel when it first hit with that huge note soaring up there. It's the same thing that happens when Adele hits, "We could have had it all." That big note, that money note. Also in the Jason Aldean song, not that he wrote it, but "Fly Over States." The opening line of that chorus goes, wow! Challenge yourself. Write a chorus that's that big, that when that opening line of that chorus hits, you just nailed it. And if you didn't, write it 5 more times.
As a starting place, I recommend to people take the third line of the chorus, the last accented syllable of the third line, and jump up an octave on the note, just as an experiment to see what it does.
Wow. Interesting.
It's a little formula that I used to use in the studio when I was producing, and I noticed that 70% of the time, everybody in the room would go, holy crap. So start with that, and then try moving it to the most accented syllable on the second line, or maybe the most it's always got to be on an accent syllable.
Oh, sure.
Here comes goodbye. I can't sing worth the crap. You know what I mean? It works because it makes that thing poke out of the layer. It makes that word important. Anyway, just try it.
What do you have to lose? You can go back to the other way if you don't like it.
All right, so let's open it up to these guys. Why don't you start hitting us with questions? I know it's like there's probably a 15-second delay. So you might as well go ahead and plug the thing again. It's January 17th here in LA.
Yeah, it'll be January 17th and 18th all day long. It's intense.
It's not 2 separate. I mean,
no,
it's one thing that lasts 2 days.
2-day event.
Okay, and how many hours per day are you going to work on?
And it is from 10 to 5 all day, both days. I'll be critiquing songs, but you can see all the topics at my website, and there's a lot of topics. I literally, teaching is a huge part of my identity. It's a big part of what I do. I earn a living as a songwriter, for which I'm unbelievably grateful and fortunate. I don't know how that ever happened.
Because you worked your ass off.
Yeah, that might have had something to do with it. But teaching is my passion, and I just love it. So I'm hoping I can help people achieve their goals.
I've heard people make fun of Jason behind his back.
Really?
In not a malicious way, but he often, almost always, in anything he teaches, will tell the story about how he was living on cat food when he moved out here. And they go, oh God, I've heard the cat food story a million times. You know what? I think they need to hear it 1,000,001 times. Because starting Taxi, this company would not be a success if my wife and I didn't live on rice and beans.
Wow.
And we had nothing. And I went from a 6-figure job down to having eviction notices on the door that I had to take off before my wife got home.
Wow.
And not everybody's got to suffer through something like that, but it does build character. And you know what? If you don't at least cry yourself to sleep every now and then, but then resolve that you're just not going to quit, you're not going to be successful. So hopefully that burned up enough time and inspired a few of you to know that You can make it if you really. By the way, a taxi member recommended a book to me. Oh God, I've been reading it for the last 3 days. And it's really good. Some Follow Through. I can't remember the author's name, but the book is called Follow Through. Google the book. I can't remember which member recommended it to me, but as I'm reading the book, I'm going, okay, we need to do a panel about this at the rally next year, because we can talk about all the techniques and stuff, but you've got to have some structure in how you approach things. And this book makes it really simple, obvious, and it makes you go, now I get it.
I see one question that went by that said, Jason, any new books? Funny you would ask that. The most recent book I have came out in the last year, and it's called This Business of Songwriting. And when people ask me to describe it, I say, okay, you've already written a great song. Now what do? You read that book. I mean, it's basically everything. It's not about songwriting.
Yeah.
It's an analysis of every contract you'd ever see. I became an honorary attorney writing this book. It was hideous, but I'm glad I did it because I learned so much. And how to pitch. Taxi is in the book, of course.
Thank
you. You're welcome. And so there's no other new book on its way. I'm still recovering from that one.
Mitch Mash says the book is by Gene Hayden, Gene.
Cool.
Hayden, The Follow Through Factor. It's awesome. I agree. Thank you, Mitch Mash.
I just saw, what's your favorite song structure? I would have to go for the missionary position. Oh, no, I'm sorry, the song structure. Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. To me, I think there's a reason why it's the most popular structure that there is. And it was interesting. I remember Colby Calais at the Kauai Music Festival saying that her dad, Ken, who, produced a couple little acts, a little bit of Fleetwood Mac, a little bit of Frank Sinatra, the Beach Boys, this kind of thing. He said that to him, the bridge is the most important thing. And I've heard other people say, and I don't agree with that, by the way, but I have heard other people say, which I do agree with, that your bridge is your last chance to seal the deal, to take it to a next level. And so that's my favorite structure. Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus.
And statistically, our mutual friend Ralph Murphy would tell you that, like 92% of all the hits on country and pop radio fit that mold, although there's some movement away from it, but not enough and not very fast. It's still the standard. Okay. Does calling up publishers /A&R guys /managers and asking to submit work still work, or is that model of pitching dead?
I'm not sure it ever worked, to be honest. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and I think that to a large extent, unless you've already established a level of credibility, you're going to have to get some kind of a referral. You're going to have somebody bring you in. If you're co-writing with somebody who has relationships with people in the business, that's going to help. If you attend, obviously, the road rally, if you attend events like my BMI workshop, where you literally, everybody who sits there on the months when we have publishers sits and plays a song for a publisher. People have signed staff writing deals from the workshop and single song agreements and things. So to me, that's how it happens. I think very few publishers or managers or producers, and even fewer of the ones you'd want to deal with, will take just an unsolicited package or an unsolicited call.
I had a couple of taxi members that become good friends over the year, and they were here, and they mentioned to me they were trying to hook up with a music attorney. And I said, for what? And they said, to shop me. And I went, I literally can't remember the last time I heard of an attorney shopping deals. There are very few music attorneys left because there's so few record deals being done, and that's where music attorneys made their money. So that mode is certainly almost dead. Not entirely, but damn near dead. Somebody asked a question, is 6/8 time signature still viable in today's market or not?
I don't hear it a lot, but I'd say it's absolutely viable. And I also think, there's not going to be as many of them in the pile, and anything that we can do to separate our song from the rest is going to be something that's probably going to be good. I did what's called an In the Round at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, where 4 writers sit in a circle and you just play your hits or your best songs acoustically. And at that round, somebody played a song that literally, I couldn't even tell you what the time signature was. It was so odd. It was like 7/8 or something equally peculiar. The song had been recorded by Josh Groban. And I think it was a perfect example where you had to do something different to get such a huge sought after cut. So I would say if you're feeling it in 6/8 and the song is lending itself to it, you go for it. Yeah, I think it definitely can still be viable, especially if it's a great song.
4 on the Floor is probably the most popular
Sure.
and common, but
Sure.
why not?
Mariah Carey, Vision of Love. I will never be able to think 6/8 without thinking of that song.
I read Dude McLean's book, and it's primarily about doing that. Whoops, that's why I asked. Okay.
How can I find a great demo studio in Nashville for country songs? If you go to my website, here
There's
we go
a
again.
list.
Seriously,
list is this
jasonblume.com, click on demos. I'm going to tell you what you're going to find on that list. You will find the demo studios and services that I personally go to. These are the places where I pay 100% full price. I don't take any discounts for recommending them. They are only on my website to share with people. These are the great studios at reasonable prices that I personally use. I like, now everybody's going to be submitting 6/8 songs to Taxi.
How often is a bridge necessary?
Gosh, I think that would be 61.3% of the time. I don't know exactly how often. I think it's necessary a lot of the time. It's necessary when there's something else you need to say melodically and lyrically to go to a next level and to find a new powerful way back to your hook. Then if you can find that, then it's necessary to include it. If you're just tacking it on because you heard you're supposed to have a bridge, then maybe you need to keep working on your bridge because that one's not necessary. And no, I have not worked with Dennis Wage.
How do you find unique, earworm-worthy lyric rhythms?
How do you find them? I love the question, how do you find them? Because the implication is they're out there waiting. We just have to find them.
Open door number 3.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of truth in that they are waiting. And I can tell you how not to find them, which is to just settle for the very first thing that enters your mind, melodically and rhythmically, and instead do what I was talking about, this technique that I teach when I do melody rewriting, which is take your line of lyric and break it up in different places. If your line is just might change the world, well, you can say, just might change the world, or you could say, I just might change the world. Right now, I'm not talking about melody. I'm talking about rhythms. Or you might do, I just might, boom, boom, change the world. I just might, boom, boom, change the.
And you've just done at least 2, if not 3 different genres just by changing that.
Right. I would also try, maybe is there something you can repeat? Well, I just might change the world. And I do, and do. See, I'm repeating the same rhythm once I establish it, but I'm exploring different rhythms by looking at how can I break up the line differently. I just might change the world. Oh, I just might do. I just might do. You know, that's how I find them. I don't wake up with them. Sometimes I do, and that's a gift, but I can't count on it.
And then he tries to chew his arm off.
Exactly.
And get out of there.
Can't count on the first one being the right one.
Do you record all those ideas? I don't know if you're like me, but I don't write songs, but I have many, many great ideas. Always in the shower. I should have a waterproof recorder in the shower. I do my best thinking in there because there's no cell phone, there's no email, there's no staff, nobody to interrupt. And I get out of the shower, I can't remember it.
Well, luckily for me, I don't get my melodies in the shower. Seriously, because I would never remember them. I have to record them. That's why God made phones.
Do you have
cell
a
phones.
regular writing time that you sit down every day, assuming you're not on the road? But if
Yeah.
you're home or you're in Kauai for a couple of months at a time, do you, slot a time like 10 a.m. to noon and then take an hour for lunch and do the same thing in the afternoon?
I don't anymore, but I did for years and years. For 12 years, I went to an office on Music Row and I wrote songs Monday through Friday. I knew I was in that office at 10 in the morning. And I would look through my, file of ideas and I would write them. I would write an idea that had already come to me previously most of the time. I couldn't count on just coming up with something brilliant at 10 a.m. Tuesday morning, especially if I had a really big artist. I mean, if you can imagine what it was like to co-write with Britney Spears, I don't want to leave this to chance.
Right.
It's like if I'm going to write with somebody who has the potential to buy me a house and a car and change my life, seriously, I want to come in with something that I know is ready to blow them away.
What's that like, going into a writing session with a world-class artist like that? How does it typically go? Do they feed you ideas? I always use the example of Paris Hilton going, write a song about my dog, or my dog is so cute, and then went out to lunch and came back and said, is it done yet? Or do you throw stuff out to the artist and they go, that's something that resonates for me, let's go down that road and explore it together? How does it work? Or
most often for me in those situations, I'm going to come in with at least a half a dozen ideas that I love. And I'm not going to say they're finished songs because they're not. I want the artist's input. The more I can get them to contribute to it, the better shot I'm going to have of making their album and it feeling like it's them.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to leave it to chance. Like I said, I'm going to bring in a half a dozen really strong concepts, titles, maybe chorus melodies, or at least beginnings of chorus melodies, snippets of phrases. And most of the time, if I'm going to be honest, I'll say almost all the time, we wind up writing one of my ideas. Now, I'm not going to say there's never a time where an artist surprises me and comes out with an idea that I love. And I say, wow, I got to write that. With the Backstreet Boys, Kevin played a melodic piano thing that was so beautiful, it inspired the entire song. It wasn't a lyric, it was a melody, but that lyric was hiding in that melody. It wasn't hiding, it was so clear. I mean, that's what made it a beautiful melody.
Had he been hanging on to it for a while?
He had. He brought it in completely, finished and ready, and because it was actually his first time collaborating.
And did you write with all the guys in the room, or was it just him?
In that instance, it was Kevin, me, and great writer Gary Baker.
Oh, Gary.
Yeah.
How is Gary?
I hear Gary's good. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in like 4 years. He's a good guy. How do you feel about the use of vamps at the end of songs?
To me, that's almost not that important. To me, I know a lot of times for a film and TV pitch, they want an ending, something that they can use that goes boom and it's done. So I would probably want to do that, at least one version of a song, if I was thinking I was going to pitch it for TV and film, which I should. I think it's crazy to do demos and not try to pitch them for TV and film. I've had a lot of success. I've had songs on Scrubs and Friday Night Lights and a lot of movies and things. And I just think it's crazy to not do that. So I wouldn't do a vamp or a fade on that. But if I really felt the need for it, I would do a different version.
Yeah, make an alternate ending. You don't hear them that frequently on radio anymore either.
No, you don't.
Not even, not that I frequent clubs a lot, but in clubs they do a lot more hard cuts now instead of crossfade transition. It'll be like boom, right out of one beat into the next beat, and they'll match tempos. How do you got that one already? My kids have bath cranes. That's a great idea. You know what, though? We've got travertine in the shower.
Not a good idea.
Nah.
But there might be like a little shower whiteboard or something you could put up there.
My wife is going to love this.
How do you solve songwriting blocks? I always say that the problem with saying you have writer's block is there's somebody down the block that doesn't have writer's block, and that's your competition. You know, we're not machines. I can say, yes, for 12 years I wrote pretty much Monday through Friday, but I wasn't necessarily generating the great ideas on, you know, like turning on a faucet. They were happening when I was out walking in the woods, most often when I was driving in the car. A lot of times on the way to a writing session, that's when it would hit me.
Because
I
your
think
endorphins had
right,
kicked
exactly.
in. Yeah.
The adrenaline's pumping, and I think I know what I'm going to write at that session. And I'm listening to the radio, and suddenly I hear something, and I go, "Wait a minute! I would have said this completely different way, or I would have written this whole." And it's not like I'm ripping off the original song. It's nothing like the original song. It just sparks something because the adrenaline's pumping, and I'm on the way to a writing session.
I've got to tell you, if I were a writer, a songwriter, period, I have been watching The Newsroom for the 4 years. It's got one more episode. It's off the air, which is heartbreaking to me. I don't know if I'm not going to spoil last night's episode, but it was shocking. And I've been watching Homeland on Showtime. And I've noticed something. Shows that are at that level, frequently shows where somebody like Aaron, what's his name? Big writer, producer guy. I can't think of his name. But
Barker?
The guy who's in charge of he was the creator of The Newsroom. Aaron
I don't know.
Not Sarkozy. Anyway, my point being.
Sorkin?
Yeah, Aaron
Yeah.
Sorkin. Thank you. Okay. He did The West Wing. He did a few other really big shows. Guys at that level are craftspeople of their scripts, just as songwriters are.
Yeah.
There are stealable ideas. Not that you should steal lines from them, stealable concepts.
Absolutely.
That they're writing for their characters. And I hear stuff fly by all the time and write down little notes and hand them off to my daughter Hannah on Post-it notes. And she goes, I got this from my dad. And she wads it up and throws it away. But brilliant ideas. And these guys are they're masters of their craft.
Well, they're
Why
in
not?
books also.
Right.
I mean, most of the great lyricists I know are voracious readers.
Yep.
And I will be honest and say I got an idea that I love out of reading a book about a week ago. And did I steal their lines? No, it's not the way they said it. The concept triggered something in me that I love.
Don't steal actual lines, but concepts are fair game, especially if the concept is a fresh way of saying I love you or a fresh anything. Yeah. And you let that inspire the concept for the song, but don't steal the thing. The Rascal Flatts song that he played was universal, and it had tons of detail.
And also, getting back to the writer's block thing, I think what can help sometimes is taking the pressure off. For me, writer's block is typically fear that it's not good enough, that I'm not good enough. And sometimes if I'll just set a timer and say, I'm going to write for 10 minutes, I'm going to write for 20 minutes, there's no judgment. If I write for 20 minutes, I've done it perfectly. And a lot of times I will come out with something good out of that. The other thing that can help me is to mix things up a little bit. If I typically am writing on guitar, I'm going to put down the guitar and try to write a cappella. If I'm writing a cappella, I might put that down and see what happens if I sit at a keyboard. And I'm not a good keyboard player, and that's especially why something different's going to happen if I sit down there. So I try things like that to get the spark going, but sometimes, you know, by virtue of the definition of best, everything we do is not going to be our best.
I saw a question that's now flown by, but I think the question was, the song that I played before, Here Comes Goodbye, had a lot of action, image, and detail. And the question, if I'm not screwing this up, was how do you reconcile the fact that that song had a lot of action, image, and detail, and that makes it not universal for TV because, you know, the truck tires on the gravel road and she didn't have the radio on, she's driving more slowly. I don't think I said that the song worked great for everything. It probably, generally speaking, country songs written in the true country formula with action, with imagery, and great detail often don't work well for film and don't work well for film and TV. unless it's a piece of source music that's playing in the back of a
Right.
bar and you don't really hear the lyric, but it sets the mood and the place.
Or you get lucky enough and get a feature performance on
Right.
Nashville.
Right, which has kind of broken some boundaries because prior to that, I mean, country music comprised less than 2% of all the music used in film and TV until the show Nashville. And what's the other one? Heart of Dixie also helped break that paradigm. So they've opened it up now. But yeah, if you got a feature song where one of the characters on Nashville is singing it, it doesn't matter if
Right.
it has a universal lyric. By the way, on last night's episode of the newsroom, at the very end of the show, something really big happens, and just watch it. Frankie Pine, in my estimation, I've known her since she was a puppy in the industry, did some of the best music supervision I've ever heard on that series. And the song that she uses at the end of the show that rolls out to the credits, just perfect. She's really, really talented. Okay, let's do one more because we're 90 minutes into the show. How would you approach writing a pre-chorus? That's a very good question.
I love pre-choruses. If you don't know what that is, you should know. And it's usually a 2 or 4 line lyric section with, of course, melody, probably 4 bars, 8 bars. That's going to connect in, sort of like to lead, to dovetail, lift into that chorus. I love them. For me, I'm very title based when I write a lyric, meaning that with my Nashville training, I want to support that title. I want there to be a reason to say that title. And when I'm crafting a pre-chorus, my goal is to have that pre-chorus lyrically and melodically deliver right to the first line of the chorus. I mean, that's its function. I'm almost going to say to myself, why would the singer sing this first line of the chorus? What is the reason for them to say this line? And the answer to that question is probably going to be my pre-chorus. Just off the top of my head, a crazy example. If my title was, God forbid, "Oh baby, I love you," I might set that up by saying something like, "So if you wonder how it is I feel, oh baby, I love you." In other words, I want the lyric, and that was a perfectly dreadful example,
But it made the point well.
but melodically also, "If you wonder how I feel, oh baby, where I'm wanting it to go up, to lift. So I love those pre-choruses.
It sets up a release.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does.
All right, we need to wrap this up because I just realized I've got about 30 minutes of listing tweaking to do that has to be done before the staff leaves at 6 o'clock. So I've got 28 minutes to do 30 minutes worth of work. It has been incredibly awesome having you on the show. And
Well,
you know
thanks.
what? When you come back for your thing on January 17th and the 18th, that's on a Saturday and Sunday. Are you flying home on Monday? Or
No, I'm flying to Kauai on Monday
what time?
at either, I think, 10 something. It's in the morning.
And when are you coming out? Because I
won't be here on a Monday. I'm so sorry.
Well, maybe we'll do another special edition. I would love to have you
that
back
would be
on the
awesome. I'd
show.
love to do it.
Maybe even we'll do a Friday afternoon or something.
That'd be great. I know that Thursday of that week, I'm the guest at UCLA Songwriting Extension class.
Who's the teacher on
Marty
that?
Panzer.
Really? I've never met Marty. He's called me several times about...
He's great. Oh my God, what a discography. You look at it and your jaw drops open. It's unbelievable.
He's hit me up to speak at the road rally several times, but he had somebody contact me on his behalf, and that person was just so pushy about it that it kind of hurt his credibility. So now that if you recommend him, I'll take him seriously next time.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. This was great. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
I hope so too. And really, the main thing I want to tell everybody, before we say goodbye, is that I think the main thing I teach is not songwriting. I teach believe in yourself, and perseverance, because that's the bottom line. Because even being the astoundingly brilliant and gifted songwriter that I am, it took me 16 and a half years from the day I moved here until, okay, it was 11 years until I signed a staff writing deal, but 16 and a half years before I had songs on Billboard's charts.
Most people would not have that level of persistence.
I agree, but guess what? You need to.
Yep. Last guy walks off the field always wins the game. With that, I bid you adieu. And we will see you guys on Monday. Remember, Shirelli is coming back with some mystery guest to interview me on Monday. I have no idea what's going to happen on that show. Jason Blume, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Michael.
And jasonblume.com to register for the event. And we will see you guys on Monday at 4 o'clock. Everybody have a great weekend. And we'll catch you soon on another exciting episode of Taxi TV. Bye, you guys.